The food we eat every day um, is something that we likely take for granted. And it may be hard to even think about changing our food or making improvements so that we have a healthier brain. But Samantha and I are very excited to share with you today some really simple things that you can start to think about when it comes to eating for body and brain. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my slides. Great. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, let's advance. So we'll tell you a little bit about who we are today. We'll speak about brain health and why food is such a critical factor, among other lifestyle practices. We'll talk about brain nutrition and also digestion. You know, when we talk about food for the brain, it's much broader than just what we're putting in our mouths. And also give you tools so that you'll have something to take away as to what you can start to do to take care of your brain. So I'm Lisa Feiner. I'm one of the founders of Sharp Again Naturally. I'm also a national board certified health and wellness coach. I have been for 20 years. And I am a brain longevity specialist and have really been doing this work for the last 10 years with Sharp Again. Samantha?
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am Samantha Anderson, and like Lisa, I'm also a national board certified health and wellness coach. And I am also a brain longevity specialist, if you will. I'm certified in Dr. Dale Bredeson's RECODE protocol, which is a specific protocol intended to help reverse and prevent Alzheimer's disease. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all today.
So many of you may know Sharp Again Naturally, but for those who don't, we're an organization that was founded to educate people about the causes of memory loss and dementia. And 10 years down the road here, we've really shifted our mission to be as much about prevention as helping people to address the causes of memory loss. And in doing so, we empower and support everyone to really take an active role in optimizing their brain health. And everything we do is based on research and science. And Samantha mentioned the RECODE program, Dr. Bredeson's program. It's a multi-therapeutic approach, meaning we do many things at one time to optimize our health and well-being, including brain health. And really, you know, what is our big vision in the world would be a world where we're seeing, oh, sorry about that, where dementia can be prevented, treated, and reversed, and where everyone has the ability to remain cognitively healthy throughout their lives. So, you know, a lot of people ask, how do I know if I have an issue? Like when should I seek help? So we just wanted to take a moment and say there are different stages of memory loss. And the first one is called subjective cognitive impairment. And it's typically when we ourselves notice that something is just not quite right. And other people tend not to notice yet. Or they may just sort of shrug it off as, oh, you know, it's a senior moment, or you're having a bad day. Maybe you're tired. But we ourselves know when maybe we're really good at numbers and suddenly we're starting to have problems, or we are not able to recognize easily people's names or faces that we usually do. That's a sign. it moves then into mild cognitive impairment. And let's just say at the outset that memory loss and dementia are progressive. So if you do intervene, you will see some improvement likely. But if there's no intervention, this kind of brain disease will continue to worsen over time. Mild cognitive impairment is the second stage where people have clear symptoms, but they're still functional in their lives. They're probably still driving, at least, for quite some time. They're enjoying time with their family. But again, if untreated, it will lead to moderate cognitive impairment where people do start to have difficulty with what we call the activities of daily living, their daily tasks, things like dressing or wayfinding. They have trouble maybe remembering where they left their car or finding their way home, and really need to be, have someone with them potentially a part of the time. And then into severe cognitive impairment where people really do need constant supervision. So when would be the best time to seek help? In our minds, it is as soon as you notice something is not quite right. Because years ago, it used to be, let's put it off because there's nothing that can be done. And it's, I feel embarrassed and I don't want people to know. Well, the thinking around this has totally shifted to something's not right. Let's get some help with it and start working on improving it. So I'd like to just walk us through quickly the causes of memory loss. And this is not an exhaustive list, certainly, but it's the ones that we can focus on and often do something about. The first is nutrition. So we're going to talk more about that today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Second one is toxins in our environment. Could be where we work, at our homes, things that we're exposed to, like our food, our water, our air, effects of prescription and other medications. So this is not just the medications themselves, could be the side effects, could be interactions between the prescription medications, but frankly, being on many prescription medications in and of itself is often a problem for our brains. Heavy metal toxicity. So we're talking here, as many of you know, lead, mercury, aluminum. So these are neurotoxins, and they're in our environment. So being aware of them and being aware of how we're exposed to them is particularly important. Hormonal imbalances. So low levels of all of our gender hormones. So progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, levels of stress hormones like cortisol, when those are too high, it's an issue. Thyroid hormones, which we need for all of our body processes to be working well. These are some of the things we look at because if they're not in balance, it can affect our memory. Low level infections. We term it this way because most people, or not most people, but many people may have inflammation and infections in their bodies, but be asymptomatic. And we see this with oral infections in the mouth, Lyme's disease. Eventually, people will know they'll have side effects from Lyme's, but early on, they may not. Mold toxicity, again, many people are exposed to mold and can have an inflammation process going on, but may not be aware of it. Food sensitivities are another area. Urinary tract infections, again, can be totally asymptomatic. So knowing what these are and monitoring them, you and your doctor, can be very important. The lifestyle causes have to do with exercise, mental stimulation, and social interaction, in addition, obviously, to nutrition. So all of these have been in the research tied to memory loss, and we we do pay special attention to these. Prolonged stress. So this can start in childhood, it can be in midlife, but our bodies are meant to be in homeostasis, and that means not overly stressed. And so when you go through long phases of the body not being able to return to its normal levels of relaxation and ease, a lot of times this can affect the brain. Sleep and breathing issues. Again, in the last 5 years, we know so much more about the connection between sleep, airway issues, hypoxia, which is not getting enough oxygen because of all sorts of things, could be asthma, could be sleep apnea, but we see more and more the link to cognitive decline over time, and physical and emotional stress, trauma. And trauma, again, because of the wars and people coming back, and we're seeing the effects of trauma on people, and the load and the influence it has on the brain. So again, this is not an exhaustive list. Depression is highly linked to memory loss. It hasn't been shown to be causal per se. Hearing issues, vision issues. These are the things in the literature that we're following. Being exposed to anesthesia, really being fully put under more than once in a year, there are some residual effects. Again, those stem from a level of toxicity perhaps. But all of these are things that we monitor, we look at, and we add them to the list when it becomes appropriate. So let's just take a minute now, and before we get into the nutrition meat of this presentation, think about how you'd rate your overall level of nutrition. And just consider, have you thought about making some changes to your eating habits? If you want to put in the chat box, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, how you'd rate your overall level of nutrition, you can share that with the group. So we'll just let you take a moment and think about that. And then we'll let Samantha start in on her health and well-being. And,
I suppose we should have given a scale.
Well, I said a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay, good. Okay, great.
So
yeah, I see some 9s. That's good.
Great. I'd like to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
7 to 10. Excellent. Okay. So Lisa just ran through the sort of the top 10 factors that contribute to memory loss. And today's conversation is really focused on food and nutrition. And, we titled today's talk Food for Thought, because we know how important food is and what we eat to our cognition. And actually at Sharp Again Naturally, that's one of our themes that threads through all of our work. So today we're going to talk more about what we eat, how we eat, where we eat. It's all important. And I know it's all important, but like Lisa said, putting it all together and applying it to our lives is often the most difficult thing to change, just because food is just kind of like how we live our lives, and making shifts and adjustments to it is quite difficult. So hopefully we'll break it down into manageable bites, no pun intended, so that you can come away with some helpful tips. So nutrition and brain health and how it affects our bodies, actually, because we're obviously talking about cognition and brain health, but food affects our entire body. It provides us with energy. It supplies the critical nutrients that we need to breathe and allow circulation and oxygen to flow through our body. It provides hydration and detoxification, and it optimizes all of the systems in our body. So when somebody has poor nutrition and they're eating lots and lots of processed foods and sugar, this creates something called inflammation. And this is something that we really are trying to avoid, because inflammation can cause fatigue, it can cause brain fog, it can even cause depression and anxiety, and it can damage our gut. And I'm going to use some words like microbiome today. That word is also sort of synonymous with our belly, our gut. Okay. So it also destabilizes our blood sugar, which we're now learning an increase in blood sugar in our bodies actually could be a contributor to cognitive decline, to Alzheimer's. And if you have elevated blood sugar, it often is a precursor to people who do get diagnosed with Alzheimer's or any kind of cognitive decline. So we really want to make sure that our blood sugars are in balance, and our insulin our insulin resistance is that we don't have insulin resistance, which is a dysfunction in our blood sugar. Okay. Also, I'll just mention, this is not like a diet that we're recommending. And Lisa and I often say that this is not a diet. This is the foods that we're going to talk about today are really a shift in lifestyle that really should weave throughout your life, and not like a temporary fix that you just deploy when you feel like you need to. It's really a shift over time that we hope becomes just part of who you are in your life. But again, we want it to be manageable, easy to do, and a lifestyle that you're going to feel great and you're going to want to continue doing. So if we could shift to the next slide. Thank you. So unfortunately, we have to start with foods that we want to eliminate. And I mentioned sugar as one. We definitely want to reduce the amount of sugar that we're eating. Alzheimer's has actually been called, and this is maybe a term that you're familiar with, like diabetes 3. There's a diagnosis of diabetes 1, there's a diagnosis of diabetes 2. We don't hear about diabetes 3, but it is coming into parlance in that it's considered to be, as I said, kind of a precursor to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So we really want to limit the amount of sugar that we're consuming. We want to eliminate white and refined grains. GMOs are genetically modified foods, and Lisa mentioned foods that have pesticides and toxins. We really want to put those aside and focus on whole, unprocessed foods that don't come in boxes and packages. And then we want to add in healthy fats from high quality sources like walnuts and avocados and olive oil. I know we've been brought up to believe that fat is bad, and fats are a bit scary to a lot of us, but we are now learning that healthy fats are really important for the creation of something called ketones. And some of you may be familiar with the keto diet or getting into ketosis. And that's because healthy fats help to create those ketones, and those ketones are really, really helpful for cognition. So we want to add in all those like nuts and seeds that are delicious and are really great for the body and the brain. We want to add in small fish, not the big ones like tuna, but small ones that we call actually SMASH, and SMASH stands for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. smash. And those 5 fish are great sources of healthy fats. So I mentioned olive oil. We love olive oil, and you can prepare any salad, vegetable, whatever, and just I pour on a tablespoon of olive oil with almost all of my meals. We want to encourage fresh and raw, organic when possible, and so the plates of food that you see at the bottom there are are an ideal meal for you. Next slide, please. All right. All of this nutrition is intended to improve the nutrition that's in your body. Again, that's really great for the oxygen and the circulation flow. And we want that oxygen and circulation flow because that also helps our brains. We want to eliminate all of the preservatives and chemicals and artificial flavors. So I'm going to call them the fake sugars, the sweet and low, all of that kind of stuff out. And in are all the healthy, unprocessed foods. We want to include pre and probiotic foods. That's like sauerkraut and pickles and olives. Those are great for the gut. We want to encourage anywhere between 6 and 9 cups of organic vegetables per day. And you can gradually increase the amount that you're eating over time, based on how well you're tolerating that increase, because that is a lot of vegetables and it can cause a little bit of bloating. So slowly build up to that. And we want to hydrate. We want to drink as much water as we possibly can. The theory of water consumption is you want to consume your body weight, half of your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 120 pounds, you want to be drinking 60 ounces of water per day. So I just fill a big jug of water up every single morning, and I drink from that jug so that I know exactly how much I'm consuming each day. And then lastly, there is a nonprofit organization called the Environmental Working Group that puts out a list each year that has 15 foods that we can consume, that they recommend that we consume, and 12 foods that they recommend that you only buy organic if you find them, because they are filled with all sorts of pesticides. And we're going to be putting the link to that list for you so that you can print it out. And when you go to the supermarket, there it is. So just put it into the chat. When you go to the supermarket, you can look for the organic foods that are listed under that dirty dozen, because we really want to avoid eating conventional, which is just like the regular non-organic, because they're just filled with tons and tons of pesticides, and those are not good for us. Okay. There is our Clean 15. That was based on the 2021 list, and the 2022 list is out now, and that link will point you there. Okay. Next up, in terms of body and brain and food for thought, is fasting. And I know we've been talking a lot about foods, and fasting is another component of brain health, because fasting helps to stabilize that blood sugar that I mentioned, that we really want to make sure it's balanced. And it also aids in something called autophagy, which is when our cells clean out all the bad stuff, and it aids in cell regeneration. When we pause eating, it allows our bodies to digest and not work so hard. And so it rests the system and it reduces inflammation. And so we really want to encourage, if you could go to the next slide, at least we can go back to that slide. We want to encourage at least 12 hours of fasting. So like if you stop eating at like 7 o'clock at night, you wouldn't want to start your next meal until 7 o'clock the next morning. If you can increase it to say 15 hours of a fast, even 16, and start your first meal at like 10 o'clock in the morning, that's even better. We know that fasting for some people is challenging, and you can just try to experiment and see what works for you, whether it's like stopping earlier in the evening, like at 7 p.m., or, you know, you can even stop earlier, like at 5 p.m. It's really up to you and whatever your body rhythm likes. Again, Lisa and I are not physicians, and so there is that caveat on this slide that it's really important that you consult your doctor. If you have blood sugar issues and you want to fast, make sure that you speak with your physician, because they will give you some advice about how to go about doing it safely. And it can, as I said, it can really help stabilize your blood sugar. So if you are on any kind of diabetes medication, you may actually go off of it, because the fasting can really improve that. But you definitely want to be checking in with your doctor. Again, if you're experiencing like confusion or lightheadedness or blurred vision, stop fasting immediately and make sure that you eat something like a fruit juice or something just to get your blood sugar back up again. Okay, that was enough for the caveats, and just to make sure that you all know about that. We've been talking about the brain and the brain health, but also what we eat affects our digestion and our gut. And actually, the brain and the gut speak to each other. There's like a constant dialogue between them, and gut health is critical to brain health. There's a direct correlation there. And so we want to focus on what we eat, and we've already talked about some of that. We also want to talk about how we eat. So spending time with preparation of our food. Digestion actually begins with meal prep. And when we start to smell the food, enzymes in our digestion are released, and they start our bodies preparing for that meal. And so it's great to introduce like whoever is going to be eating into the meal preparation, and just to start to enjoy that experience. And then during mealtime, taking time to chew, being mindful when we're eating. And there's a reason we say thanks before a meal. It's to kind of slow down and not dive right into the food. My kids like to joke, I often take photographs of my food before I eat, and they say the phone is eating first, Mom. And there's I think a fun thing in that like I'm taking some time to sort of appreciate my meal and taking a photo of it. When we eat, I've mentioned the fasting, but it's also really great if you can to stop eating at least 3 hours before bedtime. That can help with your digestion, and it could help with the word that I used before, that autophagy. It will allow the body to rest while you're sleeping and scoop up all those cells that need to be cleaned out. And emotional state really means just eating with loved ones and your family is a great way to enjoy a meal and just having some wonderful time experiencing the food. So it's all connected to the gut and the brain. And let's get to the next. Great. So, other topics that are in Lisa and my kind of hearts and minds are, how can we keep our gut healthy? How can we stock the fridge and our pantry? We talk about alcohol and like, can we consume alcohol? We talk a lot about sugar and sugar cravings. And we also talk about the challenges of when we go out to restaurants and or even to friends' homes, like how do we eat healthy when we do that? And all of these topics are featured in the program that Lisa and I offer through Sharp Again Naturally, and that's that is eating for brain and for body and brain. And that is our program. It's a 6-week program that begins in September. And we'll share more details about that a little bit later in the presentation. But what I've just shared is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg of the course that we have developed. So
Thanks, Samantha.
yeah.
A lot of good information there. So I think one of the most important things is the why. Like why do we want to change the way we eat? I mean, obviously we don't want to get dementia or Alzheimer's disease, and trying to prevent that is high priority for many people. But we don't, the idea is, if we're going to live longer, which many of us are due to modern medicine and a lot of other things, right? We want to live better. We want to live well until the very end of our lives, so that there's not this long period of deterioration. So if you look at the left side here, it's your healthy years, like healthy cognition, the fact that you can move around, you can spend time with grandchildren, you can do the hobbies you love, you can exercise, you can tolerate stress better, you have a purpose in life. All of these things lead to health, right? And if you're, and the bottom axis obviously is our age and how many years we live. And we really want to reduce that amount of time that we are not at our fullest capability. And look, aging does take a toll, and we know that. But Samantha and I, and many other health coaches are seeing the results of healthier lifestyles, increased lifespan, and people really enjoying their lives much longer into old age. And so that's the goal.
Yep, absolutely. And Lisa just talked about the intersection of our health span and our lifespan, and like there's this wonderful secret treasure in aging, and that research has shown that the older we get, the happier we get. So if we're going back to our why, these are happy days, and so we want to feel our best and our sharpest at the age when we're the happiest and feeling really the most abundance in our lives. And there's a lot to enjoy. And so we would love to be able to offer that. And food is, and this may be, radical to say, but starting with food, it's, making quite, little tweaks in your life will make a really big difference.
Very true. And I think that this graph is very counterintuitive, and that a lot of young people wouldn't necessarily believe it, but there is so much research to show that people later in life are more content and happier. So a word to the wise, right? So we'd like you to just stop a moment and think about, what is one thing you learned today that you'll do for your brain? Like one takeaway. And we'd love for you to share that in the chat. Will it be to drink more water? Or will it be to try to eat more, organic vegetables and fruits from the Clean 15 list? Or will it be to finally try to give up artificial sweeteners? I think for many people, what we like to say is everyone's an individual. those people Samantha and I have worked with and who have been in our previous groups, everyone's unique. And so your answers will all be different.
Yep.
And that's great.
Yep. I see 9 cups of veggies, and actually somebody asked how many servings of veggies per day. And really, we hope you can get up to 9. That would be the ideal if you can do that. Limit Splenda. Yes. So those artificial sweeteners are, yeah, challenging, and limiting them would be great. Be intentional about pausing for gratitude at the dinner table before beginning to eat. Yeah, that's beautiful, Nancy. Experiment with increasing the amount of time I am not eating. Right. The fasting duration. Going back to fasting. Yeah. Most people actually find that the fasting, once you start to get into that rhythm of fasting, it's really not a problem. That, going to 2 meals a day is actually really enjoyable for most people because they're not in the kitchen so often. You don't have to cook as often. It's kind of like this, the one strategy you don't have to do anything to do, but it has a wonderful impact.
And the only other thing I'd say is when we talk about, what steps we're going to take, is that it's a process, I mean, like you talked about fasting, maybe fasting 12 hours to start with feels like a lot. So if you can do 12 hours, that's great. If you can get up to that, and then you'll see how it feels to increase it little by little. Or, I mean, I like to tell the story that, I knew I didn't feel great after eating dairy. It took me 2 years to get off of dairy products. I love cheese, right? So, but I gave up like one thing at a time, and then I lived with that for a while. So all of this is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Education and awareness, right, are the first steps. And then getting a little support around it can really be helpful moving forward.
Yeah. Bit by bit. Yep.
Yeah. So, we have, Samantha and I are teaching again, just for the second time, this program starting the early in September, which is our Eating for Body and Brain program. And there's a one-on-one coaching session before and after the 6 group sessions, which are an hour and 15 minutes each. And education and resources are provided. And there's some testimonials here of just some things that people were able to achieve in just the one group. So one person said, I got rid of canola oil, because we talk a lot about oils, and those that are more healthful than others. And we provide lots of recipes and also vegetables people hadn't heard of before. And so she's reading more labels as well. We also talked, believe it or not, about cookware, because cookware is not all created equal and can have an impact on your food. So that's something else that this other participant talked about. So it's a very inexpensive program. We're very fortunate that we have people, donors, who see the importance of this kind of work and who help to underwrite it. And there's more information on our website at sharpagain.org.
The link for the class is now in the chat.
Thank you very much for that. So, and if you have any questions, please, reach out to us. We also have some upcoming webinars that we wanted to let you know about. One in September, one in October, one in November. The first is how to manage stress, depression, and anxiety to help prevent memory loss. Again, we've seen a lot more of this during COVID and its aftermath. Things are not quite normal again in many ways, and it has caused a lot of stress for people. There are questions about the ApoE4 gene, what's called the Alzheimer's gene. So we're going to hear from a professional about what it is and what we can learn from it. And we talk about detoxification a lot. I mean, whether it's the autophagy or, how you can heal yourself if you've got Lyme disease or, high levels of toxins in your body. So this is going to be our webinar in November. So please look for those notifications and join us. So, what else can you do? Our website is filled with very helpful information. So we encourage you to visit us. We have an email list. We try to put out informative emails on research or other things that are timely in terms of the season or the special days during the year. So you can look for those and sign up on our list. Feel free to call us, refer someone to us, or join one of our programs yourself. And as always, we are a nonprofit and we do appreciate any support so that we continue offering these programs. And with that, we thank you. We will open the floor now for questions and answers. And here is our contact information if you'd like to reach out to either myself or Samantha, and we're happy to take questions. So you can put them in the chat and we'll monitor that, or we can, you can just, I guess, raise your hand and we can call on you. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can see people. Okay.
I loved Lynn's comment. We have choice and control in the healthy aging of our brains. That's nice. That's true.
Well, and it's really what we're trying to do, right? That's the empowerment piece of our mission, is really to give people the choice and the power to stay as healthy as possible.
Is there research to support the fasting recommendation? Yeah. So if you might give me 1 second, I'm going to grab one of the books off of my bookshelf. I mentioned that I'm certified in the Dr. Bredesen's Recode program, and Lisa's actually almost finished with the certification as well.
Very true.
Dr. Bredesen has a host of resources around fasting on his website, and then I don't know if you can. Oh, gee, hang on. Because
your blurred background, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna change that one. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so this book here is one of Dr. Bredesen's books, and he has a lot of information about scientific research around fasting. Another physician that I follow is Dr. Jason Fung, F-U-N-G. One of his books is called The Obesity Code, and he also has books on fasting. You can follow him. So yes, there's lots and lots of material on that topic.
So Maxine is asking about how does sleep quality and breathing problems manifest? Is it only oxygen levels? So it's a very good question. It is not only oxygen levels. Hypoxia is part of it, but there are a number of things that have been identified, especially over the last few years. We know that there is a very strong correlation between obstructive sleep apnea. Also, some aspects of that are they call it disordered breathing. But if you're waking up a lot at night because your airway is being closed off and you wake up gasping, or you sleep with your mouth open, a lot of these are indications that you may not be getting restful sleep. And a lot of people with sleep apnea aren't even aware that they have it. But if you reduce your oxygen levels and you are disrupting your sleep at night, it also can impact the amount of deep sleep you get and the amount of rapid eye movement sleep you get, both of which are tied to memory. So one has to do with memory consolidation, taking the experiences you've had during the day and consolidating those into long-term memories. And then the other part of that is the ability of your brain to detoxify and cleanse at night. That only happens during deep sleep. So if you're repeatedly waking up or you're not getting enough deep sleep, that will impact the amount of plaque and other, let's say, waste products and debris that accumulate in the brain. So these are things that if you think you have a sleep issue, you definitely want to get checked.
So I'm going to put into the chat a few books that you might want to look at on sleep is Matthew Walker's book called Why We Sleep. And then another book about breath and breathing and disordered breathing, like Lisa said, or sleep apnea is James Nestor and his book called Breathe. Breath or breathe. I can't remember, but I'm going to put it in the chat. I'm going to put it in the chat as breath. Both of them are great reads, and you can get them at your local bookstore or that other one.
So thank you for the shout out, Rebecca. We appreciate it. Rebecca's taking I think the foundational program. So it's great to have you in that. And, a lot of people say that even though they think that they have really healthy habits and they very well might in many of the areas that we talked about today, if you look at the list of causes, maybe they're exercising well and they're eating well. There are so many things to take away from not only what's covered in the group, but also from your fellow group participants. And
Yeah.
so that also can make it more fun and enjoyable. And you have a lot of commiseration with people who are going through, similar kinds of things. So are there any other thoughts or questions? Anything that Samantha and I can answer?
There's a question about how you can have your airway evaluated. And I know Lisa has an idea.
Well, there are dentists and doctors who specialize in sleep and snoring and sleep apnea. So you could Google that, see who might be in your area. And, I think there are many ways to do a sleep study these days. There are centers, there are at-home sleep studies where you can borrow a machine and take it home and use it for a couple of nights, and that data then gets stored and it can get evaluated. You can use, I don't like to leave my cell phone in my room at night, but for one night, or you could do it. There are some apps that will actually track your sleep. I wear an Oura ring. This tracks my sleep every night in addition to my activity, and the Apple Watch, I think, also.
Well, Lisa, I also wear the Oura Ring, and this month we just got this new feature. The Oura Ring is now testing your oxygen levels at night. So it could be another thing that we don't know how accurate it is because it's new technology for the Oura Ring, but it's something else for you to. Yep, there we go, Oura Ring.
Right. So there are different ways of tracking. And if you need some help finding a doctor or someone who can help you look at this, just contact us and we can provide that. So anything else?
We hope you'll join us. We start September 9th.
And we hope that this has really been helpful. Having more information, hearing the information again, it never hurts. And if you just take away one more thing each time, it's really very useful, I think. So we hope you'll enjoy the rest of your summer and eat all of those wonderful summer vegetables that are available right now. We really have an abundance.
Maxine is asking a question. Should one do the foundational course first before the nutrition focused course? No, not necessarily. We had people in our nutrition course in the spring who had not done the foundational course. They support each other. They're not, there's not like a, it's not like more of a graduate course. It's
right.
just,
There's not a prerequisite.
right.
You know, one other thing that I failed to mention when we were talking about sleep, you know, I think that there's this misconception that people who have sleep apnea are men with thick, you know, necks that are overweight. And unfortunately, they're finding that there are thin young women, you know, who also are suffering from sleep apnea. So it really does not depend on weight or visually what you think your neck looks like. These are, you know, we didn't talk a lot about the airway, but this narrowed airway is more of a, you know, anatomical issue that we've seen more and more as our diets have changed over the last 100 years and people's faces have gotten progressively thinner. It's impacted the airway. So we just encourage you, if you think you have an issue, to get it checked out.
Yeah. A dentist can do a 360 x-ray to evaluate your airway, and there are dentists that can do that.
Yeah.
Well, before everybody jumps off, if I could give a little plug for something that we have on our Sharp Again website. About 3 months ago, we launched a very useful tool called our Roadmap to a Sharper Mind. It's a free downloadable resource that touches on the reversible causes of memory loss and some steps that you can begin to take to address them. And you can go to sharpagain.org. In our carousel, there's a little link. Click on it and it'll enable you to download the PDF for free. And a lot of work went into it, so I hope you'll take advantage of it.
Thanks, Sue. That was good to mention. Yeah, so that's called the Roadmap to a Sharper Mind. So we hope you'll enjoy that.
And there's a lot of good information on nutrition in there.
Yeah, that's one of the longest sections. That's true. All right, then. Well, thank you all for joining us today. It was very nice to have you, and we'll hopefully see you next month.
Thank you, Samantha and Lisa, as always, for your expertise. And every time I attend one of these webinars, I learn something new. So thank you.
Yeah, and if it's lunchtime for you, enjoy a healthy plate of vegetables and olive oil.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.